My husband is upset that I don't look like a mom because I look good.
That's like in Legally Blonde. We're like, you're breaking up with me because I'm too pretty? I'm too blonde?
I'm
Like-
too blonde. You should be saying thank you.
Yeah.
Dan and I have been married for 3 years and 8 months ago welcomed our amazing son into the world. He was very planned and wanted, and motherhood has been transformative for me. By the way, this comes from What Does a Mom Wear on the OK Storytime subreddit. So I was able to take 4.5 months maternity leave before going back to work. Without going into too much detail, we both work white-collar jobs that require professional attire. A normal workday look for me is a skirt or a pair of slacks, a silk blouse, pumps or boots, depending on the weather, but always with a heel because I'm fight-foot nothing. Maybe a blazer if I have a big meeting. Dan wears a suit almost every day. I also style my hair and do some makeup for work every day. This is what I wore before our son was born and what I continue to wear. Dan and I are pretty even in sharing parenting duties. I tend to take mornings because I'm more of a morning person than Dan. A normal morning for me starts early, short workout, shower, get baby up, get ready, get baby ready, and baby off to Dan because the daycare is on Dan's way to work. I'm normally dressed at the tail end of this process, but I keep my robe on over my clothes in case my son wants to give my outfit something to remember him by on our way out the door. That's smart. For the last month or so, Dan has been more irritable than normal in the morning. There have been side comments if he gets up and I'm drying my hair or getting dressed. Basically, if I'm not 100% focused on my son in the morning. Why isn't he 100% focused on your son?
Yeah, right?
What's with the double standard? Our son is happy playing and supervised, so I just chalked it up to morning moodiness, but it's been getting worse. Last night, I brought it up in a way I thought was a neutral, non-confrontational way. Basically, his answer was this. His mom was 100% a mom after her kids were born. Well, then maybe you should have married your mom.
There you go.
Solution. She gained a fair amount of weight after she had kids and never tried to lose it. She wore sweatpants every day and works a job where she wears a uniform, so if she wasn't in her work uniform, she was in sweats and a shirt. She never did her hair or makeup. Her entire identity was being a mom, and she shared with me how hard it was to watch her kids start their own lives. Dan thinks I don't care about our son as much as he does since I worked on losing the baby weight and still put effort into my appearance. This is just so stupid. I mean, his mom made her own choices, which are totally valid, but she's not just a mom. She's a person too.
Yeah.
She's still a person. I feel like keeping this part of my identity actually helps me be a better mother. I love my son, but I'm still me. And I still have the things I like to do. Dressing well, blowing out my hair, and doing my makeup are therapeutic to me. Now, that being said, my son is my life, and if I knew that not doing those things would guarantee him a happy, healthy life, I would stop immediately. I told Dan that my son and I have our morning routine, and he gets a lot of time and attention before I go to the office. Dan said he wasn't looking to fight, but he just wanted me to think about my priorities and my time management. Is it normal for new moms to totally sacrifice all of the things you like to do? Is this a sign of something deeper I need to address with my husband? And there are some relevant comments and an update. You absolutely need to address this with your husband because the fact that he is trying to make you feel bad for just literally getting ready in a way that's not affecting your son at all. Your son is not in danger. Your son is being watched.
Right.
And he's not making any changes is ridiculous.
It's just like, it feels so like surface level, the stuff that he's looking at. Like, oh, because she like didn't focus on herself in like the ways that my wife is focusing on herself, then that means that my wife is not being a good mom.
But there are some relevant comments. Spludgy XX says, why the heck does he care that much about your appearance if it doesn't actually directly affect your son's life? I'm with you on this one. If it doesn't make a difference to how your son is treated, why can't you treat yourself and do your makeup? It's not like you're spending all the time and ignoring your son. I don't really get why he equates how someone looks with how good of a mother they are.
Yeah.
Even if his mom was how you described, there are so many others who are good mothers but also take care of themselves. If it's not affecting your son, I don't see why you would need to change what you're doing. And OP responds, part of my job is sales and client service based. I feel like I have to look put together because that's what they expect. I don't think it is impacting my parenting. MCQ76 says he should stop projecting his views of motherhood and memories of his own mom onto you. It's inaccurate and just a little creepy. It sounds like you're spending time with your kid, so he has nothing to complain about. I can't even begin to imagine the amount of logical gymnastics that would get me to think that dressing like a slob means you somehow love your kid more.
Mm-hmm.
And OP responds, it's basically that any time I spend doing stuff for myself is time that our son isn't the center of attention. But I am paying attention to our son. He's never neglected. And if I had to choose between straightening my hair and making my son feel better, my son wins without a second thought.
Mm-hmm.
An update, I had no idea my post would get so much attention. There was a lot of really solid advice and one creepy PM warning me that by dressing in business attire and wearing lipstick and heels, I was being overly spicy sleep around my child, and that would turn my son into a serial unaliver.
What? 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 By putting on makeup and straightening your hair and just wearing heels in the office, which is a very normal thing for women to wear in the office?
Maybe you, Redditor, should not just schmexualize women's bodies when they're just living. How about that?
Like, also, maybe you should look at those, like, serial unalivers and not blame their actions on women wearing certain clothes.
Weird comment.
Stupid
weird comment.
Hate that.
OP continues, a couple of clarifying points. My mother-in-law did work when my husband was growing up. She just didn't have an office job. She works in a medical field and wears scrubs every day. When she's not in scrubs, she's in sweatpants. Seriously, for our wedding, his family started a pool about whether or not she would wear sweats to the wedding. I did not suddenly get smexy after my son was born. I was slightly overweight before my son was born, and I'm back to my pre-baby slightly overweight shape. Now, the update. Dan and I went out without our son so we could talk. I told him that I was confused by his comment and I wanted to talk about things. I asked him if he could name specific things about the morning routine that made him feel as though our son was neglected. I offered to switch shifts, so to speak, if he thought our son should have more AM parent time. To make a long and confusing conversation short, Dan's confused by the fact that I got over my postpartum depression and am back to normal now. It doesn't make up for anything. He's like, you should still be depressed. My mom was depressed for years. For some context, my PPD never made me question whether or not I love my son or made me feel like we never should have had him. My PPD made me feel like I was constantly failing my son, that I wasn't good enough to be his mom, and that he deserved better. There were a few times I broke down and started crying and would tell Dan that he was so much better at being a parent than I was, and that our son didn't deserve to have a crappy mom like me. Luckily, I have an amazing DR who recognized that this wasn't just baby blues and helped me get the help I needed. It could have been much worse. But it can be a lot worse if you don't listen to more episodes with stories like this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Just search up OK Storytime, and it won't get worse. And there is a little bit left to the story, but do you have any final thoughts?
I just can't believe.
I just can't believe.
I feel like this is the kind of stuff that, like, I would hope I would see before I enter parenthood with someone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, like, you know, obviously you can't always see things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, like, hopefully there is, like, some sort of talk that just could just, like, beat this into his mind that, like, you don't have to be exactly like his mother.
Exactly. No, it's crazy. And also it seems kind of like he's like, oh, we have the reasoning now, so we're chill. And it's like, oh,
right.
Actually, no, the reasoning makes it sound a lot worse. But there's more. Basically, Dan only felt like a good parent when I was failing and telling him that I was terrible at it.
What?
Wait. Like, I only felt like I was doing a good job when you were doing a really bad job, and I wanted you to make you feel like you were doing a bad job so I could feel like a good parent.
His, like, parenting method is just, like, bullying the other parent. It's just, like, putting her down so that he could be lifted up.
Now that I'm doing better, he no longer feels like a good dad. That's a you problem, man.
Dang.
It's crappy, but we're starting couples counseling. Okay,
Good.
I'm continuing with the counseling I started for my PPD, and Dan's going to see someone too. We're going to figure it out.
Good.
And I'm still going to wear heels to work, even though it's going to turn my son into an axe-wielding maniac.
You go, girl.
You go, girl. And that is the end of that story.
Wow.
And the end of this episode.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
Would you look at that.
Shocking. So if you love us, make sure to subscribe.
We love you.
And see you tomorrow.